Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I want to talk about audiobook narrators that I like. So I don't have a long list. This video will be pretty short, like most of them are, but I really only have 4 audiobook narrators that come to mind when I think about some of my favorites. First up is January LaVoy. Way back when my sister and I decided that for shits and giggles we were going to start the Women's Murder Club series by James Patterson. Do not recommend, by the way. But those are easy to read books, they're easy to listen to, and January LaVoy narrates them, so I actually did make it pretty far in the series. I obviously stopped that and have no interest to continue reading them, but having an audiobook narrator that I like made getting into audiobooks easier for me, because when I started reading audiobooks, well, my first mistake was listening to Persuasion by Jane Austen. But if I don't like an audiobook narrator, I immediately stop paying attention and I'll zone out, and then I'll have to rewind and go back. And having a voice that I actually like keeps me in the story longer. Next is Robin Miles. I've listened to her narrate the Kingdom of Souls series by Rena Barron. Loved Kingdom of Souls. Reaper of Souls and Master of Souls not so much, but I still really enjoyed that audiobook. One thing that I specifically like about her is that she does different voices for everyone, sort of, but like not in like a mocking way, where you know how like sometimes if someone's doing like a voice and it's supposed to be a certain guy, they just make him sound like a big dumb idiot. None of that. I liked all the voices that she did. They made sense. And even if I wasn't doing a blended read like I typically would with most fantasies, I would be able to tell which character she was doing. Next is Danice Cabanela. I followed her on Instagram for a very long time before she started narrating audiobooks. And the first audiobook that she narrated was Arsenic and Adobo, which I love that series. It's the only cozy mystery series that I like, and I keep getting the audiobooks because I like her narrations. One of the reasons that I choose to listen to audiobooks or sometimes do blended reads is so that I give correct pronunciation of names and foods, especially if there's a heavy cultural element. So like with Arsenic and Adobo, having a Filipino audiobook narrator describe all of the things really works for me, and she does a good job bringing Lila to life. Next is Joniece Abbott-Pratt. She narrated Ray Bear, which obviously is a super green flag for me because I love that book. And again, it was one of those books that I wanted to do a blended read of because there were things in the book that I could not pronounce, and I was like, I want to make sure that I'm saying these correctly. So I decided to do a blended read of Ray Bear, and I loved her narration of it. She also narrates Legendborn and Bloodmarked. If you know me, you know that I was not a fan. I will leave my review of Bloodmarked in the cards in the description. But even though I dislike the story, having an audiobook narrator that I like helped me continue to get through it. So even though I don't like everything that she narrates, I definitely can appreciate having her narrate things that I don't necessarily love. So when making this list, those 4 were really the only ones that I could say confidently that I enjoy. However, I have heard great things about Jakobi Diem as an audiobook narrator, and I believe he does a lot of Alexandria House's books, maybe. I think that's correct. Haven't listened to any of them yet, but he's definitely on my list of people that I do want to listen to. There's also Jenny Norbak, I think is her name. She's done a lot of reading for Katie Robert, who is an author that I no longer really plan on reading all that often, but when I was reading her stuff, having her narrate things made it easier to get through. And then on the flip side of that, there are some audiobook narrators that I just hate. I know that she's a favorite, but I do not like Bahni Turpin as an audiobook narrator. She is just not for me. I think the first time I listened to her narrate an audiobook, I was in college, and it was for The Hate You Give. Now, aside from not really loving her voice, there's a portion of the book where the theme song to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is mentioned, and she sang it wrong. And I just, even if you don't know the song, which most people do, I would assume that you'd look it up, because it's not like a made-up song. It is a theme song for a very popular TV show. So that just didn't sit right with me. It's kind of put a bad taste in my mouth ever since then. So if I notice that she is narrating something, I will most likely not pick it up. One thing that I do love about audiobooks though is when there's a full cast, for the most part, because the one time that didn't go right was listening to the Six of Crows duology. It has a full cast, so each of the crows has their own narrator. However, there was one person in the cast that pronounced one thing differently from everybody else, and in my opinion pronounced it incorrectly, and it irritated me every single time I heard it. And I disliked that so much. The same thing happened in The Taking of Jake Livingston. There's a narrator for Jake and one for Sawyer, and the one for Sawyer pronounced his name very weirdly, and it just takes me out of the story every single time. Like, sometimes it makes me physically cringe when somebody says something wrong. I think the same thing also happened in A Song of Race and Ruin. There's different narrators for each of the main characters, and then one of them pronounced one thing one way and the other one pronounced it the other way. I was like, this is annoying. It's also the reason that I've been pronouncing Lila Makapagal's name wrong, and I don't think this is Danice Cabanela's fault, but in the first audiobook, I'm pretty sure her name is pronounced as Leela, and apparently it's Lila. Personally, I liked Leela better, but whatever. So those are some of my grievances on audiobooks that nobody asked for, but those 4 are audiobook narrators that I like. Let me know if there are any audiobook narrators that you specifically think that I would like and what some of your favorites are. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.